Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. Figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Happy Fantastic Friday. I know. We're all at that point in the day. You're ready to head on out. Maybe go put the keys in the ignition of the car. Maybe go home. Leave work behind. Some of you have many hours of work left. Some of you are maybe even sitting around just twiddling your thumbs, hoping for the weekend to arrive ever so early. And I am here to bring a little bit of joy to your day and hopefully take you into the weekend with some good news. And I do have some good news. We have a lot of things to get to today. Now, I will point out, the last 3 days have been pretty chaotic. We didn't do a show on Monday, on Memorial Day. We didn't do one on Tuesday. But on Wednesday, we did a show. And then on Thursday, we did like a kind of emergency update about the Flyers re-signing Tyson Foerster. And I thought, well, that's probably going to be the last kind of show that we were going to have to do for the week. And then I remembered, I didn't say that we weren't going to do a Friday show. And I was like, I can't have the people who are always in the comments on YouTube and Facebook and X. I can't leave those people hanging. And so I decided, you know what? We're 1,000% going to do a Friday show. So I've got the comments now popped up. I forgot to have those up at the very start of the show, but we have a few of the people are already in here on YouTube. Now, I will point out to you, today's show probably going to be short because I'm not quite talked out. As many of you are very aware, I could talk for a very long time. But we did the show Wednesday. We did the show yesterday. We got this show. I did Snow the Goalie a little bit earlier today, which if you haven't gone and watched yet or listened to, you should absolutely go subscribe over on the Snow the Goalie channel. You should certainly subscribe wherever you get your podcast. But we have so much stuff to do today and such little time to get to it all. But we will. We'll figure it out. Now, I see that Ford is already asking for NBA talk. I don't know what NBA talk he wants because the conference championships have been awful. We'll get there. Maybe we'll get there a little bit later. Just listen, it is so unbelievably, unfathomably bad when you talk about how the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs started off so white hot. Actually, I'd say blue hot because we know blue flames are hotter than white flames. But it started off so incredibly well in both leagues. And we're like, man, just imagine what it's going to be like when we get to the Eastern Conference Finals, the Western Conference Finals. And they have been a massive letdown. Now, the Knicks won last night, and so I'm going to go back to Indy for Game 6. And I certainly want to see it get to a Game 7 because, one, it's good for business. Two, it's good for talking about. Because as we get a little bit further into the summer here, or as the kids, get ready to be done school for the year, there are, things I like to talk about and things that I don't enjoy talking as much about. So, yeah, having a little bit of something to talk about with the NBA Finals would be great. The Eastern Conference Finals, becoming a thing. Maybe getting to a Game 7 could be a lot of fun. The Western Conference Finals have been absolutely atrocious. I can't believe how Minnesota just fell flat on their face. It was one of the most pathetic efforts I think I've seen in recent memory, and I never thought that Ant Edwards would be the guy that I'd kind of sit back and go like, yo, dude, what the hell's going on? How does Ant go from looking like a guy who's supposed to be like the second coming of Michael Jordan to, I don't know, the Wolves went out with a whimper. I get that the Thunder are really good. And by the way, this is what happens when you allow somebody to tear down a team for like a decade. I wouldn't recommend a decade, but, the NBA was really quick on the trigger finger to get rid of Sam Hinkie in Philadelphia. And granted, the picks weren't always great. Jahlil Okafor, kind of unexpected because the Lakers took D'Angelo Russell. Okay, fine. The Markelle Fultz trade, not ideal. People say, well, the Sixers took Markelle Fultz over Jason Tatum. The only reason that Boston traded out of that number one spot is because they planned on taking Tatum, and they managed to also, get more from the Sixers. Otherwise, they would have taken Tatum. That one didn't work out. Embiid has worked out relative to the rest of his draft class. I don't think anybody would trade Andrew Wiggins for Joel Embiid. I don't think anybody would get rid of Embiid and bring in Wiggins. Jabari Parker doesn't play in the league anymore. So, that kind of worked out. The NBA ran Sam Hinkie out of town. They have essentially propped up Sam Presti.
Oh, what a great executive Sam Presti is. What a brilliant mind he's been. He's acquired assets. He's acquired draft picks. He's taken on horrible contracts like Al Horford in exchange for a draft pick as well. And along with the draft pick, he's a brilliant mind.
Yes, executed a great trade, an absolute fleecing of the Clippers to send out Paul George and to bring back in SGA and a bevy of picks. All of that's fine, and swaps. All that's great. But he did a long-term teardown, and so it should come as no surprise that after multiple high draft picks, and by the way, they still have a ton of draft picks, and I think they have a few swaps left. Oklahoma City looks like, a perennial contender. Good on them. I don't fault Oklahoma City. Good on them and good on their fan base for having a nice team to root for. But let's be real here. This is exactly what the process was supposed to be, and it had a lot of time to work itself out. In OKC, it did not in Philly. Okay, fine. We'll see what the NBA Finals looks like. Because if it's the Pacers and the Thunder, that is not going to be a very fun series at all. Indy will get steamrolled. Knicks versus Thunder might be interesting, maybe. I don't want to get too far into it. There's a path here that OKC could steamroll either team in the East. I think probably would steamroll either team. But I'd be more interested in the Knicks versus the Thunder than the Pacers and the Thunder. But maybe that's just me. And by the way, Ford kind of had that right. Yeah, British Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is up here. So what does it sound like? But British Mickey Mouse sound a little bit more like this. Hey, boy. That's British Mickey Mouse. All right, we're getting off of that real fast. Real fast. And Ford's also right here. What's been annoying about the NBA playoffs is that they flip-flop from really tight games to total blowouts. It is perplexing. I don't fully get what happened. But I have some ideas here. Anyway, that's probably the NBA talk for today, Ford. No offense, but that's about all I got for you right now. And there's nothing really exciting happening in Sixers world, so we're going to kind of stay off of that. But this was going to be a really hockey-heavy show. However, we got a little bit of news. We got a nice little bit of news coming out because it looks like Howie Roseman is about to spin up some dark magic or something. I don't know how the hell he did it, but it certainly looks like Howie Roseman has figured out a way to get Bryce Huff off of this team and create cap flexibility. So we're going to start there because it is one of the most unfathomable moves that I think anybody could have maybe ever hoped for or expected Howie doing. So we're going to try to pull this sucker up here real quick. But Bryce Huff gets dealt. Now, it won't go official until the start of the league calendar or whatever, so June 1st is when this can officially go through. But Schefter was the first one to put it out, so we'll throw over to Shefty. We'll give him the credit because he's the one that broke the news. It is one of the craziest moves that I think any of us could have ever hoped for. I don't think anybody ever thought that the Eagles were going to be able to get anything back for Bryce Huff, and they've somehow figured out a way to also create cap space. So let's first go out to Schefter. Schefter's initial tweet read as follows. ESPN sources, 49ers and Eagles are working to finalize a trade that will send edge rusher Bryce Huff to San Francisco for a mid-round pick. The trade cannot and would not be processed until after June 1st. Both sides are working to make it happen. And then also know that Huff has already reworked the deal, which we're going to get to in a second. So Schefter says, before the trade can get finalized next week, the Eagles restructured Bryce Huff's contract this week. He was set to make about $17 million, fully guaranteed this season from Philadelphia, but the Eagles will now take on only $9.05 million of that salary, leaving the 49ers responsible for the remaining $7.95 million due to Huff this season. So that's a lot of words. Those are many words. Field Yates did a really good job of kind of simplifying this. So we're going to go over to Field Yates now. Let me take the comments down for a second so it's a little bit easier to read. So, specifics. Eagles declined Bryce Huff's $15.58 million fully guaranteed option bonus, which turned it into base salary. Okay. So then the Eagles turned $9.05 million of that base salary into a signing bonus, which allows San Francisco to pay the remaining $7.95 million, which seems like a steal. And in fairness, if Huff goes back to being the guy that he was in New York, $7.95 million for a legit edge rusher is kind of a steal. So, all right, the 49ers are feeling pretty good about it. The Eagles obviously feel good about it. But what this has essentially done is they took this $15.58 fully guaranteed option, declined it. They're going to pay $9.05 million, right? They paid it up front as a signing bonus. So the Eagles save $7.95 million in cash, which is going to be paid by San Francisco. And in doing so, have created more than $15 million in cap space for 2025. Additionally, San Francisco is going to inherit the final 2 years of Huff's deal, owing him $7.95 million in cap and cash for this year. So the Eagles go from owing roughly $15.6 million in salary. They convert decline the option, convert it to base salary. About half of it is a signing bonus. The other half gets paid by San Francisco. And now they've turned what is essentially a wasted player for them, a guy that really didn't have much of an impact at all on them winning a Super Bowl. And honestly, just based on the way that you kind of read the way that Vic Fangio talked about the guy, the way that things were kind of lining up, it doesn't seem like Bryce Huff ever really had much of a role going forward. So you've taken this asset who some might consider, if you want to be positive, if you're San Francisco and you're looking at it, distressed asset, a guy who's not that far removed from being viewed as a legitimate pass rusher with the Jets. It didn't work out in this 1 year with Philadelphia. Robert Saleh is out in San Francisco, so you're reuniting him with the coach that he found a lot of success with in New York. And you're doing it at a discount at $7.95 million if you're San Francisco. If you're the Eagles, sure, does it hurt to pay him $9.05 million in straight cash, homie, as a signing bonus? Sure. But does getting that money off the books and creating that $15 million in cap space, does that give you now some flexibility? It does. Now, that's not as if the Eagles are going to go on some kind of a spending spree, free agency effectively done, the draft picks are there. If you need to take on a salary, or if you want to have the flexibility perhaps down the line to be able to make a trade for a player, now you have some flexibility. Having a little bit of roster flexibility is a good thing. Now, what does that mean for 2026 and beyond, and what does it mean? We kind of touched on this the other day. It looks like the NFL is trying to maybe come down on the Eagles because Howie Roseman has figured out, and I assume his team, I don't think it's just Howie, right? Howie and his team have figured out a few loopholes in the CBA. They figured out a way to manipulate cap. They figured out a way to, we talk about dead money. Hasn't really come back to bite the Eagles much to this point, but it could. They have figured out a way to continue to create a Super Bowl contending team each and every year. This, to me, is very brilliant. It's a very smart move. I don't think Bryce Huff leaving here is going to burn you. Even if Bryce Huff becomes a very productive player for San Francisco, which is entirely possible, it's not going to come back and burn the Eagles unless they meet in the NFC Championship game and, the Eagles get bounced by the 49ers. But what this really comes down to is if you're the Eagles, you probably weren't going to get the level of productivity that you thought you were going to get when you brought him in from the Jets. And if he goes off and he's productive for the 49ers, you don't kick yourself because Fangio was here. If Fangio really believed he was going to be able to get more out of Huff, he would have gotten more out of Huff. He didn't, and so the guy's gone. So it's a good bit of business. It's a nice little bit of business on a Friday, and now Bryce Huff is gone. Now we'll see if anybody is really torn up about it in the comments. I don't think that's where we're at, but we'll see. Tony Louis says, he clarified here, our edge rushers are looking drier than gas station chicken tenders. Royal Farms and Sheetz would like to have a discussion. I will not argue that the Wawa ones are dry. They also shouldn't have chicken tenders because those belong in a fryer, and Wawa doesn't have a fryer. By the way, while we're on Wawa and Sheetz and Royal Farms, there is word that Sheetz is invading my general area. Apparently Sheetz is building in Downingtown, which is cool. Apparently they're very close to getting full approval from Limerick Township to build a Sheetz very close to the soccer field where my son plays and Ford's son plays, or will play next year, which means Russ is going to get fat. Russ has lost weight. Russ has built up some muscle, and yet Russ is going to get very fat if and when Sheetz lands in Limerick Township. Also, there have been murmurs that there may be a Sheetz landing in Schuylkill Township, which is Phoenixville, and that they might put the Sheetz and the Wawa across the street from one another, which is also apparently what would happen in Limerick. Sheetz and Wawa across the street from one another. I look forward to all of the people who have been indoctrinated into the Wawa fanaticism when there's a Sheetz across the street, and inevitably they all figure out that many of the things at Sheetz are actually better. When that day comes, just remember that I've been telling you for a long time, this was coming. Sheetz, baby. The fryer. You can't fight a fryer. You want French fries? You want chicken tendies? You want tater tots? You want fried mac and cheese bites? You need a fryer. Wawa has lost their damn mind.
Oh, Wawa has pizza.
Nobody wanted that.
Wawa has things that belong in a fryer, but we bake them in the oven. That makes them healthier.
Nobody wanted that. What are we doing here? Just wait. Just wait. Oh, look at JH. JH is right. Won't sleep on anything from Wawa. Terrible food. Amadeus says, don't sleep on Wawa smoothies. I'm sure they're fine. The coffee is good at Wawa. The coffee at Sheetz, if you get one of the Sheetz that has the bean grinders, the burr up on top of them, it's better. It's better coffee. I don't know what to tell you. You want to fight about hoagies? Like, we can have a hoagie fight. Sheetz, I think, used to have way better subs back in the day. I don't think they're quite as good now. It has been a bit since I've had one of the cold cuts subs on my tours of Schuylkill County. It has been a while. I think the last time I had one, I was like a little bit underwhelmed. The bread wasn't as good. Wawa's rolls are probably still a little bit better. Might have to do a heads up. I saw Pagan from Crossing Broad try to do like a heads up. I forget what township it is where there is a Sheetz and a Wawa like really close to each other. And he did like a blind taste test and it was poor. It just wasn't good. I mean, Pagan doesn't have a good palate. So at some point, if we get a Sheetz and a Wawa across the street from each other, guess what? I'll be doing a taste test. I'll take the Russ Joy Show on the road. I will. I'll line it up on Swamp Pike or whatever. It's going to be Ridge Pike in Limerick if that's where we end up getting one across from the other. Some of you are going to have your minds blown when Sheetz ends up down here. Royal Farms is fine. See, we got on this because of the chicken tendies. You can't. Video guy Amadeus in the comments about this. Like, I hope you know this is going to be a thing that like is going to have to get clipped now. It's like Sheetz versus Wawa. Royal Farms deserves a little bit of love. The potato wedges are good. The chicken is perfectly fine. They're not like trying to be anything other than what they've been trying to be lately. Royal Farms knows what they're good at. They don't try to venture outside the box. Sheetz has the ability to just take anything, put it in some batter, and just fry the hell out of it, and it's amazing. Wawa likes to try to, like, did I see correctly that Wawa's trying to do bread bowls? Did I see that?
Wawa has pasta in bread bowls.
Who asked for that?
Wawa has soup in bread bowls.
I certainly hope not. Who asked for that?
Wawa has sushi.
They better fucking not.
Wawa makes ceviche now.
Please don't. No, por favor.
Wawa makes Wiener Schnitzel.
Nein! Wawa just needs to get back to basics. Just get back to basics. You don't have to be a one-stop shop for everything. By the way, I saw a thing. I've taken the show way off the rails. This wasn't supposed to be part of the show, but we are here now. So one of my friends sent a thing yesterday about things that Wawa is discontinuing. Hold on, I'm actually going to find this. I'll share this with everybody. I've taken the show so far off the rails that we are past the point of no return. Get your Phantom of the Opera references ready. But I did see a thing going around about things that Wawa is going to be discontinuing. So let me see if I can open this in a new tab. All right, here we go. So Wawa is apparently discontinuing a bunch of things starting 2025. I don't know where this came from. It came from a friend. I trust this friend, and so I'm going to say that this is an authentic thing, unless Wawa comes after me and tells me that this is fake news. Let's talk about the things that Wawa is going to get rid of starting in the summer of 2025. Okay, here we go. They're getting rid of rye bread. Now this, by the way, this is interesting if you can see this, and maybe you can, maybe you can't. They have their rationale for why they're getting rid of stuff. Our ingredient count has increased over the past few years. Yeah, because they keep doing all this like dumb shit. Our ingredient count has increased over the past few years, while at the same time we've seen a decline in customer transactions in 2024. Okay, well, I wonder why. Maybe because you're trying to do too much shit. You got away from the stuff you're good at. Hoagies. You started making pizza. What are we doing? Okay. By discontinuing low-performing items, we aim to drive sales with the most productive ingredients. Okay, so let's take a goosey gander at what they are allegedly, reportedly, going to be getting rid of. So rye bread is out. Yellow American cheese is getting replaced by white American cheese. Green leaf lettuce is getting replaced by shredded lettuce. I don't know why that makes a difference, but okay, it's shredded, sure. Lobster bisque, gone. If you've been going to Wawa for lobster bisque, who am I to judge? Probably not the place I'd go for lobster bisque. Light cream cheese is being replaced by cream cheese. You want to save a few pounds? You want to save some calories, a little bit of fat on your day by using light cream cheese? No, have full fat like the rest of us. Get chubby on your own accord. Okay. Pizza green peppers and pizza mushrooms are getting replaced by fajita veggies. I don't put mushrooms in my fajita veggies. Does that mean that mushrooms are just gone? Because that's fine. But I wouldn't want mushrooms where I don't want mushrooms. Okay? They're getting rid of sunflower seeds. I didn't know that was the thing they'd put on. Did they put that on hoagies? The hell did they put sunflower seeds on? Chipotle ranch? Just white ranch. You wanted some spice in your day? Nay, nay. Miracle Whip, gone. That's fine. I think Miracle Whip is one of the weirdest things to ever grace the condiment aisle. I don't understand Miracle Whip. It has a weird tang to it. I don't like it. Berry cream cheese. You want to put some berries in your cream cheese? Have that fun at your own home. They're not doing it for you anymore. Gone. Spring mix, replaced by romaine and spinach. I assume that means together, or does that a romaine or a spinach? Because spinach and romaine, not exactly the same. Okay. Texturally, you can even get a little bit of flavor off some spinach, which romaine, not really. Baked potato soup, gone. Wow. So we're killing off the soups, or at least some of the soups. They're keeping the chicken noodle. That's smart. Feta cheese, replaced by shredded parm. Not remotely the same kind of cheese. Not sure what we're doing there. The Greeks give out to the Italians, but I don't get it. Red onions, replaced by white onion in salads. Red onion's no longer an option for pizza. Again, why are they doing pizza? Chicken empanadas, gone. Craisin raisin mix, gone. Oatmeal, gone. Everything bagel, gone. Now, I have a question about the last two. So as much as I want to dunk on Wawa for a lot of their decisions here, oatmeal. Were there people really going to Wawa for oatmeal? Were there people who were actively driving to work in the morning and said,
Oh, I think I want to have some oatmeal. Oh, yeah, that sounds great. Let's go get some oatmeal at the Wawa.
and then they go in and do you add brown sugar to it? Are you just eating straight oatmeal? Nothing added to it? Are you throwing in some berries? What are you doing? But why? Why oatmeal? At what? Just get the little pouch. Get the rolled oats. Make some overnight oats in the fridge. A little mason jar. A little bit goes a long way. Okay. Everything bagels, I can understand if people are upset about the everything bagels, though. I think if you're going to Wawa for a bagel, chances are you're getting a sizzly. I will stand very resolute in the belief that the best sizzly Wawa has going is the pork roll, egg, and cheese on a bagel. That's the best one. Little gray container. It's been months since I've had one, and now I'm thinking about it. But thankfully, we're later in the day, and so they don't have them out. Tomorrow, though, I might find an excuse to get to Wawa just for that sizzly. And if you're going to get one, then you have to get two. So anyway, I have derailed the entire show to talk about Wawa, to give you a little bit of insight into Sheetz. By the way, Sheetz, I went up and I played in an alumni soccer tournament a few weekends ago. I think I told you guys this before I went on the work trip. And the Sheetz in Pottsville, that used to by where I used to live, Pottsville Minersville Highway. It was incredible. It was I felt like I stepped into Bizarro world. There's a seating area, high top seating area. There's a different spot for the hot food and where the shakes are, and there's a beer cave, and there was the one. I didn't know what to do. It didn't belong there. You ever go to a place where you're just this doesn't belong here? This is very blue collar, anthracite, the coal region. I'm walking in there and I'm this belongs in Westchester. What are we doing? Bathrooms are, I don't know. I'm telling you, it's going to be a culture shock for a lot of Sheetz haters when Sheetz moves down in this area. Now, one thing I don't expect is that Rutter's is going to keep coming down. Rutter's is kind of up in the Skook area. There's one in Leesport or somewhere around there. And there's another one by the Cabela's. If Rutter's comes down here, I think people will freak out. The food, I only had once. It was okay. But we get Sheetz and Wawa happening everywhere. Downingtown, Phoenixville, Limerick, if that's what happens. God help us all. And our waistlines. Maybe I'll have to get a sponsor on the show for a fitness app or something, because, yeah, here we go. All right, now, let's see. I'm going to go over to the comments really quick because there are people weighing in about Wawa. Don't look at me. I'm not the bad guy. I'm just pointing out to you that this is a thing, okay? All right, here we go. Tony Louie, by the way, in the muscle. Thank you. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Nick Johnson says that dim sum place in Phoenixville every year for the Firebird Fest. I don't know which one. There are a few, and there's some in Limerick too. Very good. We do have good dim sum around here. There's a place in Collegeville. If you like Korean food / Japanese food, I think it's a Japanese place, but the owner's Korean. Banjung. It's by Troubles End Brewing, which is also a fantastic place in Collegeville. Banjung, incredible. Go there. If you like dim sum, just go there. Just trust me. And then go get a beer at Troubles End. It's great. Okay. JH says, I agree with Nick. Well, what was Nick? Nick says, Sheetz can't make a hoagie, but they can make fried food. And then JH says, I agree, Nick. They also do better with burgers. You shouldn't get a burger from Wawa. I don't know why Wawa does burgers. Sheetz, I think, makes an okay burger. Maybe. I don't know. I think I had it when it first came out like years and years ago. I don't necessarily think either place should be doing burgers, but that's just me. Sonic does okay burgers sometimes. It depends. Wendy's, though. Wendy's is where it's at. Unless it's Whopper Wednesday. Then you go to Whopper Wednesday. Anyway. JH says, I won't sleep on anything from Wawa. Terrible food. What is this? Greg Bondarenko says, Cumberland Farms is all over Massachusetts. What the hell is a Cumberland Farms? What is that? Is it like a Royal Farms? We'll have to do some research. I've never been to Massachusetts. If I get up there this summer, which there's a chance, then I'll have to look for a Cumberland Farms. Greg Bondarenko says, I definitely miss Wawa. I will say, if you live in an area where you're used to having a Wawa or a Sheetz and there's nothing like it, you're going to miss it. When we would go down to Outer Banks, up until last year, because now there's a Wawa in Kill Devil Hills in Outer Banks. Up until last year, when we would go down to North Carolina, there was nothing like a Wawa or Sheetz. And I had, not a little panic thing, but I was like,
What if I need a hoagie? What if I need a hoagie at 2 in the morning? What am I supposed to do?
Amadeo says, we do need a Buc-ee's, though. We do. If Buc-ee's ever comes to Pennsylvania, it'll be a great day. I would drive to Pittsburgh for a Buc-ee's. Maybe not. Probably once. Maybe only once. Let's see. Tony Louis says, the 7-Eleven on High Street has the driest chicken tendies. Dirty Dom wouldn't even eat them. That's correct. I think you mean the 7-Eleven on High Street in, is that in Westy Chesty? Has to be Westy Chesty. I can't. Yeah, I think so. Let's see. Ford says, I'll go down on the record forever that Panera is a total scam. Chicken salad sandwich is good. Chicken salad sandwich there is good. Chocolate chip cookies are fine. Nick doesn't like Panera. Says the monthly unlimited coffee was their only good feature. Nick is also upset about the rye leaving Wawa. Sorry about that. Really, really sorry. Also says Russian rye is the love of my life. I thought it was going to be the loaf of my life. That'd have been great. Let's see. JH says about Wawa, it's because their food is ass. That's why they've reduced sales. Yeah, that's probably. Amadeo says, wait, they had lobster bisque at Wawa? They did. Yeah. Amy caught the musical reference. Good job, Amy. Thank you. Greg Bondarenko said, I never wanted to try their soups. The chicken noodle is fine at Wawa. On a cold winter day, when you're in a pinch and you were at marching band practice, yeah, chicken noodle soup's fine. Chris Freed says, just had lunch with another professor. You need to try it yourself, Russ. Just pick something better than Wawa. I've said this before. I don't really think there are many of my professors from the past that I'd want to have lunch with. Yeah, maybe. Probably not, though. JH says, lobster bisque from Wawa is always sunny shit. Can see the gang going to the Wawa in their tuxes for it, except for D. Screw her. Oh, how do you hate D? Tony Louis says, Wawa is going to stop pushing mushrooms. The Italians from Kennett Square are going to accept that. Expect a sit down with Mr. Wawa soon. Let's see. What is this? Chris Reed says, besides Hang On Sloopy, Rick Derringer sang what is the most iconic wrestling intro theme in history, Real American. Do you agree? Rip to a legend. Yeah, Real American was a good song. Though Hogan has a very, it's not aged well. Amadeus says you should try the sausage and egg on the French toast. I'm not doing that. I refuse. Flyers Purgatory's here. Says late, but Royal Farms chicken is elite. It's good. It really depends, though. If it's not fresh, if you know when Royal Farms has just pulled the chicken out of the fryer and when they haven't, and when it's not piping hot, it's not as good. Ford also says Panera's overpriced as hell. It is overpriced, but the chicken salad sandwich is actually good. The bread's solid quality. I don't have anything negative to say. Nick says, I had one good professor. Don't go to that scam college in Bluebell. Steven says Wawa makes okay pizza. Anthony DeGracio came in over the top with a very good point. Acme Fried Chicken is the most underrated. I agree. They do have really good fried chicken. Okay. I'm sorry that I took us off the rails. I'm sorry that this was supposed to apparently be a sports show today, but it is a Friday, and Fridays are fun, and Fridays are sometimes weird, and so this is where we are in our lives. And if I should feel sorry for that, I guess I do, and if I shouldn't feel sorry for that, also great. So, let's see. Where are we going to go from there? Because we've talked about the Eagles, we talked about Wawa and Sheetz and Royal Farms, and I'm going to have to change all kinds of stuff. I might even have Amadeo redo the thumbnail for the episode to include Wawa and Sheetz. I don't take pleasure in making Amadeo's life a living hell. I promise I don't. But, like, he said to me, we were doing Snow the Goalie, and then he said that Brode sent him a Phillies podcast to edit, and then I'm doing this one, and I've been flirting with the idea of doing it, and It's Just Wrestling, and it might happen this weekend, I don't know. But now it's, like, almost fun, but not real. I wouldn't do that to piss off video guy Amadeo. I might do something like that to piss off intern Andrew, but not video guy Amadeo. I wouldn't do that. Brother. All right. We're done there. Let's get to the other point for today. Now, we talked about this yesterday. Tyson Foerster got extended yesterday. That was a bit of good news. We talked about the fact that it was a very good deal for the Flyers. And 24 hours later, I have yet to see people shit on the deal, which is pretty freaking impressive. If you think about like just how divided Flyers Twitter is, it's not just Flyers Twitter. It's like Philly sports Twitter in general. But Flyers Twitter is like typically two camps, right? And so you end up in this like weird thing where like I was expecting people to hate, like absolutely despise everything that, comes out of a Tyson Foerster bridge contract, 2 years, 3.75 AAV. So we talked about this yesterday, but like 24 hours later, I don't see the hate for it. It seems like everybody's kind of aligned on the belief that like the Flyers are getting good value, $3.75 million, not a lot of money, cap's going up, it's fine. It doesn't prevent you from going after free agents next year when they clearly want to. It doesn't stop you from potentially making a trade this offseason, which they may also want to do. So you have this like $3.75 million cap hit for the next 2 years. And if he underperforms, you still have his rights in 2 years. And so you can extend him from there, or you could trade him or whatever. If he overperforms, if he becomes like a 30, 35 goal scorer over the next 2 years, well, then you're going to pay him more. But in fairness, like, I'd rather them do this than sign him to like a 6-year, $6.5 million contract, or like go the Owen Tippett route, where like I feel like the Tippett contract was a mistake at the time. And I think he's so streaky that it's going to take a lot for me to believe that's going to age to be a good contract. I don't hate it. Like, it's a good deal. So here we are like the next day, and I have not seen a lot of hate for it, which is kind of nice. Now, there was a little bit of Flyers news, and it was another extension that was signed. And so get yourselves ready if you missed the news about this one. Now, it's not a massive deal, but it is a good little bit of business here for the Philadelphia Flyers, and it happens to be around a guy that they picked up in a trade last season. And it's a guy that, like, when he came up to the NHL, didn't look wildly out of place, and I think it's a guy that they might have some hope for this year and beyond. So the Flyers announced today, right at 2 o'clock, that they've re-signed Helge Grans, the defenseman, to a 2-year, two-way, one-way contract extension with an AAV of $787,000. Another good bit of business. If there's anybody right now out in Flyers land who's triggered by this deal, you need to, like, get some help. This is a perfectly fine deal for a young defenseman who might end up developing into something of value. Keep in mind that at his previous stop, there was a belief that he could blossom into being maybe a second-pair defenseman. And if you're going to get him on a 2-year extension at $787,000 a year, yeah, we're good. We're good there. See, what you have to keep in mind is this team is going to try to go through what I would expect to be an overhaul of the roster between this season and next season. And free agency is going to be part of that, and trades are going to be part of that. But, like, Helge Grans is a perfectly fine player to this point. The expectations are going to be low. Could he play himself onto the roster next year? Maybe. He's 23. But there's one thing about him that you should feel really good about if you're a Flyers fan. He's 6'3". And like for a blue line that lacks a lot of size, You talk about Cam York. You talk about Emil Andre, Jamie Drysdale. Grans at 23 years of age, 6'3", 205 pounds. There's a little bit of size there. Now, does he fill out more? And if he does, as a right-handed defenseman, there's some actual upside there. And even if he doesn't develop into the guy that you ultimately hope he will, and if some of your other defensemen develop a little bit faster and they make it to the big show before he does, he's still going to be young enough, and being a right-hand defenseman with size, they could probably turn him into another asset down the line. So it's a good bit of business. So that's pretty cool. Tony Lewis says Grans is going to be Ristolainen's injury replacement in the beginning of the season. If he plays well, he might stay. I think that there's a legitimate chance that he will get some actual time in the NHL this year. So it's good. Again, it's a good bit of business. And it came down like about an hour ago. So good on the Flyers. Thank you to the Flyers for putting this news out right before we went live with the show today. Tip of the cap to them. And for those of them who are watching, nice bit of business here. This is back-to-back days now where the Flyers have done very good business. So you're looking at between Tyson Foerster and Helge Grans when it comes to money that you're committed to, AAV-wise, you're looking at $4.5 million, roughly $4.5, $4.6 million between the two players. Guy that you hope has 30-plus goal scoring upside, defenseman that you hope is going to be able to be a contributor at the NHL level. That's pretty good. Pretty damn good. DeGrazio says, waiting for the York trade announcement. I'm not going to do cartwheels if and when they trade Cam York, but I'm convinced that of all the defensemen on the team, the one who makes the most sense to trade is Cam York. I just don't see it. I will continue to be on this, and if I'm ever wrong and he wins the Norris or something, clip this and throw it back in my face. I don't see it with Cam York. JH says, Helge Grans, future top pair right-handed defenseman with the salutes. I'm not sure if I'd go that far, but maybe. Tony Lewis says, I swear Ristolainen blackmailed the team doctor to give him unlimited time off when he wants. That's not what's happening, but man, he's a mess. The injury stuff happening back-to-back years around the trade deadline, kind of a mess. DeGrazia also says, Sharks are supposedly open to moving the second pick. They need to get better now, need actual NHL talent. Would I trade Cam York and number 6 to move up to 2? Of course. Would San Jose do that? Probably not. But would I do that to be able to get the pick of the next best player, to get the best center probably when Schaefer comes off the board at number 1, presumably? Yeah, of course. So few teams trade out of the top 5, though. So I'd be really shocked if it happens. I think the Flyers are going to get aggressive. I still am going to hold... Listen, 2 years ago, I was very locked in on Mishkov. Can Mishkov fall to the Flyers? He did. Then I was like, all right, last year, can Demidov being under contract in the KHL lead to him falling a bit? Could the Flyers use some assets to move up and try to get Demidov? It didn't work out. No one traded back. Fine. This year, I legitimately hope that we get to a point where Roger McQueen falls to 15, and then Danny's got the number 22 pick. He's got what's either going to be 31 or 32 from the Oilers, and that maybe they use those picks and something else, and they trade up to 15, and they take a gamble on McQueen, who's 6'5", plays center, and if the back injuries are behind him, holy shit, what a steal at 15. You have to make a ballsy move at some point as a GM. And if he does that, by the way, if he trades 22 and 31 or whatever it ends up being, and a roster player, let's just say it takes all of that. Maybe it wouldn't, but maybe it would, to get up to 15 and get McQueen. If it doesn't work out, you don't look at those picks and say, oh man, we traded the legitimate future of the team. We really botched that one. No. That's where you say, all right, cool. Hopefully the pick number 6 ends up being a guy that is a legitimate foundational piece to this thing moving forward, and you took a swing at 15. Hopefully it would work. But if it doesn't work out, you go, all right, number 6 was still worth it. It's fine. And what did number 22 and 31 turn out to be anyway? We'll see. This McQueen dream is something I'm not giving up on until somebody for whatever reason takes him at number 8. And I go, oh boy. Let's see. Greg Bondrako asks, any word on a draft day Snow the Goalie show? No. We have something in the works. We've had something in the works. We are waiting on final confirmation about something that's in the works for draft day. Now, if you remember, Bundy's daughter gets married the day of the draft, so Bundy won't be there. But Ant and I, perhaps intern Andrew, perhaps some other people involved in this, there have been conversations. I have to leave it at that. And when we have an update, I'll provide the update. Tony says, to all the people that keep banging the trade up drum, go to Pro Sports Transactions and click on NHL Draft Pick Transactions and look at how many times a team traded out of the top 5. So you're not going to find many. That's the point. That's Tony's point. Now, if you're trading from like 2 to 6, maybe you're okay with it. Like maybe it makes sense. Now, that's that. And we talked about Helge Grans. Now, there's one other thing I wanted to get to, and it is hockey related. And it's not something that's like realistic for the Flyers. We talked about this on Snow the Goalie, and we essentially shot it down because it's not much of a thing. But I do want to get to like the whole idea of being honest in sports, because how often do we sit back and say, man, oh man, I wish coaches were more honest in post-game scrums. Man, oh man, I wish players were more open and honest in post-game scrums. Man, oh man, would I absolutely love to hear how a coach and a player really feel at the end of a game, especially after elimination. We got that. We got that last night with Pete DeBoer. So if you missed the NHL playoffs last night, and if you missed what happened, Jake Oettinger got pulled after 2 goals in the first period, and Pete DeBoer made a call that I still think is questionable, even though his rationale was pretty damn sound. And like when you look at it from a macro perspective, you go, all right, he may have had a point. There's still part of me that sits back and goes, man, this was a very, very, very ballsy move. And it didn't end up working out. It didn't work out for the Stars. But he was very committed to at least explaining his rationale for why he pulled Oettinger after 2 goals allowed. Only 2. 2 goals allowed, first period, and it was early and it was an elimination game. But I want you to hear what Pete DeBoer had to say, because I found it shocking that you take this starting netminder out. Even though he hasn't had a lot of success against Edmonton in the playoffs, I'm still shocked that with an elimination on the line, he made this move. So let's go out. We'll listen to Pete DeBoer, and then we're going to bring it back, a couple of comments on it, and then I have a comparison to make, and then we might head out for the weekend. But here we go. Here's Pete DeBoer on why he pulled Oettinger after 2 goals in the first period.
Well, anytime you pull a goalie, there's the reasoning's always to try and spark your group. So that was the number one reason. We had talked.
I hate the idea, by the way, of with an elimination on the line, saying that the way to jolt the team is by pulling the goalie. I get that in the regular season it makes sense. Man, if your team is getting their teeth kicked in the way that Dallas was last night, the goalie's the least of your concerns. I mean, probably could have made one of those, probably could have been a save. But to pull that guy, especially with everything that's committed to him long term, and how big he's been for you in the postseason, before this series, I'm not sure that's the jolt. Well, we'll keep going.
Endlessly in this series about trying to play with the lead. And obviously we're in a 2-0 hole right away. And you know what, I didn't take that lightly, and I didn't blame it all on Jake, but the reality is.
Oh, Butt is about to do a ton of work there. I didn't put it all on Jake, but oh boy, this isn't like a little butt. Like this is like a butt that's been doing squats and doing whatever people do in the gym to like enhance their gluteus maximus. He's taking this from a gluteus maximus to like a gluteus enormous. All right, here we go. Butt is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Is if you go back to last year's playoffs, he's lost 6 to 7 games to Edmonton, and we gave up 2 shots on 2 goals in an elimination game. So, it was partly to spark our team and wake them up, and partly, knowing that, status quo had not been working, and that's a pretty big sample.
So so the head coach of the team, mind you, this team that had an exceptional playoff run to this point and looked like they could very well represent the Western Conference in the Stanley Cup final. That team, that head coach, who's undefeated in Game 7s, that coach said, I'm going to pull the goalie because we need to jolt the team, and then also very clearly had it in his mind that historically, Ottinger's lost 6 of his last 7 playoff games against Edmonton. Now, Is it fair? Yes. Is it a perfectly fair line of reasoning to follow? Yes, 100%. Should he have said it publicly? I don't know. I'm one of the people who wants to see and hear coaches and players be honest. So you can't exactly crucify the guy for being honest. And at the same time, when you go, he's lost 6 of his last 7 games to Edmonton in the playoffs, then shouldn't you have done this sooner? Like, wouldn't it have made sense to not start him in games sooner in the series? Like, if you were that worried about it, why let yourself get in this hole? Well, it's because he's your best option. He's your best goalie. Would they have gone back to him if that series had extended? If Dallas had flipped the game on its head and won and forced another game, would they have gone back to Oettinger or not? Like, that would have been the follow-up question I would have gone with. Maybe somebody did ask it, maybe not. And then it's hypotheticals, and then the coach probably, like, weasels their way out of it. But, like, he's one of the best goalies in the game. Yes, he struggles against Edmonton. There's no doubt about it. But that whole team struggled. That wasn't just one guy. So then you kind of, like, zoom out for a second. You go, all right, well, DeBoer is a really good coach. Oettinger, probably a top 5 goalie in the league. You go, there's going to have to be some work to, like, patch this one over, right? And then you look at what Oettinger is owed. And that's where shit gets really crazy, because you kind of have to patch this up between the coach and the player. Because Oettinger is now owed $8.25 million. $8.25 million each and every season from now until the 2032-2033 season. Again, I will repeat that because, woo! Pete DeBoer benched Jake Oettinger after 2 goals in an elimination game. Oettinger is owed $8.25 million through the 2032-2033 season. Holy shit. That is a mess of a situation, because now if you're Dallas, your number one priority is fixing that relationship, because if you're Oettinger, you're pissed. And when you hear those quotes, you're even more pissed. And if you're Oettinger and you go to the front office and say, this guy's got to go, or like something's got to change, you can't say that shit publicly, and Dallas doesn't do anything, well, then if you're Oettinger, you're kind of like, maybe I just shouldn't play here anymore. But then if you're the front office of the Stars, you go, all right, well, if we were to explore trading Oettinger, what are we going to get back? Because he's not making $2 million or $3 million, even $8.25 million. That's a hell of a cap hit. So then you think about the Flyers, and you think, you know what? Ivan Fedotov's making a few $1 million. Flyers have some second-round picks. Maybe a second and an Ivan Fedotov gets the job done. You know what? We'll throw in a Nick Seeler, too. Seeler, Fedotov, and a second for Oettinger. You're welcome, Dallas. Now, there's no way that it happens. Also, if you're a Flyers fan, you want Oettinger, which I wouldn't blame you for. It'd be great. It would certainly accelerate this thing, and it would certainly lock in my belief that the Flyers are a playoff team next year. They're not going to part with, like, first-round picks for Oettinger. And they're certainly not going to part with a first-round pick next year for Oettinger. I'd be fascinated. If this were to happen, like if he were to go to market, whatever that looks like, if he were to go on the trading block, I would love to know what some of the rumored trades are. I'd love to know what teams are willing to offer. Are there teams that would offer 1 or more first-round picks to get a true number 1 goalie? The good news is, if Edmonton is his kryptonite and you're an Eastern Conference team, you don't play Edmonton. And if you do, you play them in the Stanley Cup Final. And as we all know, 2026, the Flyers are going to offer $20 million plus to Connor McDavid, and he's going to come here. So if you're the Flyers, you trade for Oettinger now, and then next year you sign Connor McDavid, and then you don't have to worry about any of it. See, it's brilliant. That's like 7D chess. Well done. It's not happening. Probably neither of those things are going to happen, but it's at least fun. It's a fun little brain game to play. Let's see. Chris Freed says, when the goalie can't stop a beach ball, you got to do what you got to do. I just don't know there. I really don't know. Greg Bondarenko says, when the season's on the line, you need to do whatever you can to do. Yeah, to win. Anthony Grazio says, DeBoer pulled a Torts, basically. Kind of. Now, did he go into the locker room and say, I'll bury you if you re-sign here? Well, no, because he's re-signed through 2032-33. I can't, even saying those numbers, it's 2025, and I can't even fathom 8 years from now. Will my 5 head, 6 head, 7 head, will it remain there? You know, as big as my forehead is, it's never receded, so that's always good. My hairline isn't running away. It never got to the starting line. Like, where should my forehead be? Probably about there. That'd be like a normal forehead. So we're getting like a little extra here. By 2033, will it still be here? I would assume so. Will it still be here? If I'm like up in the Stephen A. Smith zone, then I'm going to be really upset. I have an ugly ass head. First, I have a big head. Second of all, I have like a birthmark here that you can't really see. But like, I'm pretty sure that like scalpage wise, I just wouldn't, the bald head would not be a good look for me. And I don't like wearing baseball caps. So I'd have like an actual crisis. Would I fly to Turkey for a hair transplant? I might. I'm keeping all options open. I can't go bald. Bald would be bad for me. It would just be very, very bad. Not quite as bad as calling out your franchise netminder who's owed $8.25 million through 2033, 34, but pretty bad. Pretty bad. Okay. Let's see. Ryan Reese says that the Stars should just fire DeBoer. Fire that choker. I mean, he's undefeated in Game 7, so I don't know. Like, you got to the Western Conference Final, but it was a poor showing. I don't know. I don't know what they should do. Chris Reed says, hey, there's a deal that makes the Nola contract look good. I still think Oettinger, even at that cap hit, is still better than... The Nola deal sucks. There is no redeeming quality of the Nola contract. The only redeeming quality about the Aaron Nola contract is that eventually it will end. That is the one good thing about the Aaron Nola contract. So, okay, we've talked about, to recap, we talked about Bryce Huff. We talked about Wawa versus Sheetz with a little bit of Royal Farms sprinkled in and a very, very quick mention of Rutter's and Cumberland Farms in Massachusetts and a little bit of Buc-ee's, but not a lot there. We talked about the Tyson Foerster extension, the Helge Grans extension, and what happened between DeBoer and Oettinger. I think that's a pretty okay show for a Friday. I think it's okay. And we did NBA playoffs at the top of the show. That's like 6 different topics. That's not that bad. Okay? On a fun Friday, a fantastic Friday, not too bad on a Friday afternoon. So for those of you who join live on YouTube, Facebook, and X, thank you for being here. Do me a favor, like the video, share the video, subscribe. Those of you who listen after the fact, love you, appreciate you. Leave a little comment in the regular comment section. Let me know what you agree with, disagreed with, things you're looking forward to this weekend or next week. And if you listen in the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts, do me a favor. If you can, leave a 5-star rating. You could do that on Spotify. You go to the show page, do a little star rating, you leave 5 stars. Great. You can leave comments. Did you know that you can leave a comment on each episode on Spotify? You actually can. You pull up the episode, and then you can put a little comment in there. They don't have reviews, but they have comments. I don't know why, but you can put a comment. That's fine. You can read that on the show. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you hit the 5-star rating because that's great. But leave a 5-star review, and I'll read it on the show. And that's lovely. There are some haters, man, on Apple Podcasts. I did find that. So on YouTube, viewed widely positive. Spotify, widely positive. Apple Podcasts, there are some people who do not like me on Apple Podcasts. Some people just very upset. They seem hurt. But I told them, if you leave a 5-star review and trash me, I'll still read your review. They didn't do that. They left like a 1-star. I'm not reading that on the show. I'm a very simple person. 5-star review, you can be critical. I'll read it. 1-star, I don't read it. Very simple. Okay. Greg Bondarenko here with a little bit of positivity on the way out. A little of everything, Russ. It's a good way to end the week. I hope you had fun. I hope we brought a little bit of joy to your Friday. I'll be back on Monday. I will remind you, there was a Snow the Goalie earlier today, so go check that out. We got into a lot of stuff. Ant and Bundy got into a lot of things. So Snow the Goalie, new episode. Fighting Words got postponed till tomorrow, till Saturday. Bob and Ant, they'll have a new episode of Fighting Words breaking down all the Phillies talk. That'll be on their YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts, and on the Joy Media YouTube channel. So go check that out and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I might do an It's Just Wrestling this weekend. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. Probably next week, but maybe this weekend. You just never know. If you hear a scream from somewhere near Philadelphia, it's video guy Amadeo freaking out. There's another show to edit. And it could be It's Just Wrestling. You just never know. Hey, by the way, do me a favor. In addition to liking the show and all that, which I appreciate, check out the show. If it pops up in your algorithm on TikTok or Instagram, YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, if it does, hit it with a little like, send a little bit of love. You can follow the account. You don't have to, but you can. If you hit the like button, that'd be great. TikTok, we've gone well over 1,000 subscribers or 1,000 followers, which is great. YouTube channels, over 1,100 subscribers. We keep growing this thing, and we're going to keep growing it. We're gonna keep watering this show all summer, and it's going to bloom in the fall. Although it might be Blue Midnight. You just never know. But thank you for joining me here on the Russ Joy Show. So until Monday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. You really are. You're very smart. And it's also the name of the show. Talk to all of you Monday here on the Russ Joy Show. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Talk to each and every one of you very, very soon. Bye now.